Hey everybody, welcome back to the CAF Plus channel. We've got a very good show tonight. We're going to be looking at a preview for this weekend's most recent signature auction in illustration for Heritage. And there's a bevy of wonderful pieces, a lot of stuff that we haven't seen before in the illustration signature auctions too, which is fun. Or at a certain level, there's a lot of Maurice Sendak pieces, plenty of Gil Elvgrens again, great stuff to look at. And we've got Sarahjane to kind of guide us through the preview. So let me bring Sarahjane in and we'll get this thing started. Hey, good evening.
Hey, good to see you.
Likewise. And as we were talking before the show, it's a new location once again for you.
Yes, I am at the Heritage headquarters, with the quarter-mile long hallway, and one of my friends was nice enough to loan me his office. But yeah, it's an exciting week. It's always a really busy week before the auction. There are people who actually want to come and see art in person, which is something you can do. Don't forget, that's something anybody who's watching, if they're ever in the Dallas area and there's things they're interested in bidding on, it is possible to, see the pieces in person before the auction. And so there's people who want to do that. Then there's people who are calling me up, asking me to FaceTime with them and show them things. So I kind of
You'll actually give a guided tour of what's available or what's out on display for
some
those.
people want a little bit of a tour of the gallery, but a lot of people actually really want to, have actually see the art from all the angles, especially some of the pieces that we're going to be talking about tonight. They're physically bigger than a lot of the things we sell a lot of the things we often sell in illustration. So people kind of want to literally see somebody standing next to them for scale, or get a little bit of a sense, because the numbers are the numbers, but at some point, do you really know the difference between what 74 inches and 58 inches feels like when you're talking about a piece of art?
I get it. Now, you had said that a lot of these pieces were in New York before they went down to Dallas, which is where you're at right now. I mean, do a lot of people come to the New York offices to see them in the month leading up to this auction?
When we have a preview, it's pretty well attended. I mean, I think that we usually, will try to advertise it, let people know things are usually up for about a week in the office, but then also we will sometimes occasionally send something to the office if there's somebody who's very specifically interested in a piece. But by and large, we'll have the preview up for about a week, and people love to see art in person, especially when you're collecting, this sort of stuff. There are places you can go to see illustration art. There's the Society of Illustrators, which is a couple of blocks from the New York office. There's other, museum collections that have it. But by and large, you're not going to just be walking around the New York City galleries and, getting to see a Hildebrandt or, even a Leyendecker.
Right. Right. No, that's very true. And but so once everything's at the Heritage location, I mean, how do you store things there in the lead up to an auction like this? I mean, not everything could be put on a display for a preview for anybody that might want to see it. So what happens to how is all that art stored?
I'm gonna give the obvious answer, which is very carefully. But more specifically than that, there's a warehouse space kind of just right off to my side that I'm sitting very near. And we've got a whole team of staff who, what they do is, pack and unpack and make sure that everything, is not only is it kept in a flat file or, on a shelf or, in a rack, wherever is the appropriate safe storage for it, but it's also tagged and in our system so that the next time you go, hey, where is that? Somebody knows exactly where it is. And to me, I think to myself, yeah, I have a job. There's a lot of things I know, but those are the people, they're the heart and soul of Heritage. Without all the people who somehow know the magic of having, millions of items. I don't know how many items in the course of a year we sell across all of our departments, but, hundreds of thousands, I would at least assume. And
easy with all the coins and
exactly
small items. Yeah.
There's just a team of people who know where those all are at any given moment. That's really, like I said, they're the true experts.
Well, you got to have them. So so only certain things then might get put out for preview in advance, or unless somebody is requesting specific pieces to look at.
Yeah, I mean, especially with an illustration art sale, because one of the things, if you want to hang things on a wall, they got to be in a frame, and a lot of this stuff has been stored. It was stored by the artist. It was stored, just on its board. It wasn't really, nobody's ever thought about hanging it up on their wall until
Mhm.
I'm looking at people and saying, this would look great on your wall.
Yeah, you could actually walk in and be a decorator for somebody. Like, I've got 3 or 4 paintings that would
Yeah,
be fantastic in your apartment.
my next career.
Oh man, but all right, well, we should just dive. There's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
there's a lot of
You
stuff.
picked a lot of pieces, and honestly, this is one of the more diverse illustration signature auctions I think that we've ever previewed together. I mean, it's there's a Brom in here even. I mean, I don't think we've seen that before. I mean, there's couple pieces by Boris. We've seen Boris pieces before, but maybe not one, as early in his career as one of the pieces that are in there. So
Yeah.
it's cool. There's just a lot of great pieces that I enjoyed looking at, previewing prior to the show today.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Let's jump in. I love it all.
All right, so now let's see here. Let me kind of fix my screen a little bit. All right, so this is Margaret Brundage, right? Who did a lot of work for Weird Tales. I know that, but tell me about this first piece.
I mean, yeah, she was really the queen of Weird Tales and really defined the look. So, I mean, this was a cover for the magazine, and it's one of really her signature pieces, which are these scenes that really involve this kind of scene of a little bit of supernaturalness going on, a little bit of eroticism going on, a little bit of fear and horror and terror, and also, just a little bit of wildness, and that, super deep saturated color. A lot of people were not pastel artists in the way she was working in the pulps at that time. So I think this is particularly amazing because it's just really remarkably preserved, and her eyelashes, the hair, everything just looks like bright and great and has just been really well maintained. And Weird Tales is such an important title. It's such a classic cover. I think it's everything people want in a Brundage.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very memorable image. And what year was this done? 1937.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That's something that effectively fragile from a material base standpoint is still that vibrant.
Yeah. And I also think that, like, clearly these people who modeled this for her were just dancers. She was finding like actual really skilled dancers, because that's a hard pose to pose too.
Definitely, and to draw it. Hey, Favorite Hero said that they just received their recent Heritage Auction wins, and it's the best packaging they ever received. So not only are the guys and gals in the warehouse who catalog and track everything doing a really good job, but those who pack
Yeah.
do a great job too. All right, where are we going to go from here? Oh, Virgil Finlay. This is a fun piece. When I was picking images to use on the intro slides, I had to use it. I love the expression. All 3 of the characters in this one.
I know. I also I love all 3 of the characters. I love how how goofy the devil character looks in this way that was it was pretty almost cliche for that moment. It was really like from the kind of like magician posters of the time, that like that, like a lot of it feels like it's playing on things that would have been familiar to people back then. But then I love the little really signature Virgil Finlay stars in her hair. That's the only touch that really just you tell he couldn't help but be him. And yeah, just the way she's holding that knife, and just the clear storytelling of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I tend to feature on the CAF update a piece by Virgil at least once a month, because there's usually anything that gets posted in the CAF is just is beautiful, right? But there's almost always it's pen and ink, and there's always a interstellar space something or other going on in there, or it's just some crazy cross hatching that I love. So it is great to see a painting like this. It's so the lighting on it is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, I haven't really thought as much until just now looking at it on the screen of how that, kind of deep green that you're seeing, behind their shadows in front of the devil figure. It's very familiar to anybody who's looked at a lot of Maxwell Parrish work, or even Hannes Bach work. It's got this one kind of particular style that you don't necessarily associate with Finlay that much.
Right. So true. Well, yeah, this is gorgeous. And it's a 12.5 so far. Well, 16 over 15 with the buyer's premium. And we should say now the auction is Saturday and Sunday.
Friday. The auction's Friday.
I'm sorry, Friday.
The auction is Friday, and it is. Right. It is one day. We're going to get you in. We're going to get you out. It's 318 lots, I believe.
My goodness. So that's a fair amount to get through then.
So there's about I think the first 120 or so are the live session, and then the last there's a online only session. So
got it. Well, I apologize. I don't know why I wrote down this weekend.
You can watch it and bid on it and get through the whole thing, and I promise you won't even get in too much trouble at work.
So what's your job while the auction is going on?
Usually I'm phone bidding. So
you are.
Yeah. Not every lot, but we do still have a lot of phone bidding action pretty reliably.
All right. So Schaumburg.
Yeah.
This is like in a lot of ways it's like a fun comic book cover from the EC era, but when you get Schaumburg painting like this, I mean, it's so there's a lot of delicate textures and subtle work in this piece that make it so much more than something you would expect as an image coming from Schaumburg for a science fiction book. I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I think of this era, I don't think of images that are just so subdued in the way it's painted. I mean, I look at the mountains in the background, the craggy rock in the foreground, even the characters. It's beautiful.
I know, and I mean, I really think that like there's something about when somebody is you can tell he's doing a little bit more than he strictly had to, in some ways. That is sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you look at a piece of art, whether it's comic art, whether it's illustration art, whether it's even what you would consider traditional fine art, and you say you can see where they knew they didn't have to try as hard in this corner. They could just kind of do it pretty loose and, focus on this section. But no, the more you dive into any part of that, the more you're going to see that he's really taking the time to think through the whole structure of the composition, and then also all of the little details. And then when you think it was on a pulp magazine, that it wasn't ever going to be seen, in that large, like nobody was ever going to be able to do what we're doing now with that magazine and just kind of, zoom in and in and in. He was doing this, both for himself and because, he knew even if you couldn't tell directly all the things that we're seeing that make it work, it's doing all the detail work that makes it, a powerful piece.
Agreed. Yeah, this is, I love it. It's beautiful. It's yeah. So Marcus said all the guy had to do was unplug it, but he's going to throw a spear at it. What did he know? I mean, it's but yeah, no, it's fantastic, and it's so clean. It's crisp. It's not. I mean, I'm just blown away by this piece. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, I like the little figure in the TV too. I think that's great.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I should have zoomed in on that.
Yeah.
But again, that's from 65, right? I mean, that's we're talking something 60 years old. It's that beautiful.
Yeah, and here we have this other Finlay, and one thing I really like about it, before I forget, is that character kind of harkens back to the first one we saw in the Brundage. It's got there. He must have been, he was obviously familiar with her work, and, they were working at Weird Tales at the same time. And, it's so interesting to me, the way you can see almost, this, maybe not an intentional homage, but, some sort of like awareness that they're part of this lineage with each other, in the way that he's doing a figure that's so similar to hers.
Yeah, that one's very nice too.
Yeah.
So, and you wouldn't, I mean, it's so different than what I expect out of Finlay. Again, just seeing color pieces is really, really fun. But yeah, that's nice. And when this one was done in What is it? Does it have a year in the title?
It does have a year. If you
Let's see. Discus thrower from
1958.
58.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're talking about 20 years after the first piece we were looking at.
And it's on 8.5 by 12, so it's a smaller piece. But I
Yeah.
think that's more common from pieces in that era, right? To be more in that size, I think, for illustration.
Yeah, I think that it did get a little more common, and there's probably a few reasons for that, but that people were shipping art more. People got really more into that kind of like flat, tight gouache style instead of people who had trained in painting, on kind of oil and canvas training where they'd really just learned to work big, and so they kept working big throughout their career, whereas people got a lot more used to trying to work small and quick and tight. It was easier to photograph for some of the publications, but also styles are just styles.
Right. Now a Lummis piece. These
yeah. So this is William Lummis, not Andrew Lummis. Earlier, I like this because this is really, we've been talking about pulps, and so what I like about this is that this is a really early piece for Argosy, which is like the magazine that kind of created the pulps, and this would have been advertising an upcoming issue. And I think this is just fascinating because like we've been looking at all of these things and getting one side of the story of the pulps. And then this just feels like a whole other side of it.
Yeah, that's it's very nice. I mean, I'm curious to. Okay, it does have a framed image too. Yeah. So is this a smaller piece as well?
That's actually a little. I think that's a little bigger than the Finlay was, but definitely way. I mean the Margaret Brundage is huge. That's a big, beautiful piece, and they've all been getting slightly smaller since then. But
I love the ink work in here. The line work is gorgeous, and it's just kind of all pulled together with the watercolor or gouache or whatever they might be using there for the colors there. It's lovely the way it's done.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is this is a fun illustration. I have to say. Let me zoom in on it a little bit here for everybody.
I mean, what I love about this one is that we're really used to when we're seeing a group of aliens, they're serious in one way or another. Maybe they're threatening, maybe they're scared, maybe they're standing in for a communist society and all just kind of looking dead in the eyes, but they're always supposed to be very serious. And these guys, they're just having fun, and I really, I mean, and again, if you want to talk about line work, it doesn't get better than, Frank Carl Paul, but mostly every time I look at this, I'm just charmed by how much fun they're all having.
It is very nice. And it does look like they're coming into our solar system.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's very detailed. I really like it. And they are kind of having fun. It reminds me of my chickens now that I'm looking at them. We were talking about before the show.
They all do have different personalities. It's true.
They do.
Yeah, I like that they were looking at like a diary, like a set of photos all around, like they're in a planetarium or something.
Right, and this is like a projector.
Yeah.
All right, then I thought this was a pretty cool book cover. I can even switch over to see, so people can see what it looked like when it was published versus the original here.
Yeah, those Ace paperback covers from the 1960s are really some of the coolest that you're ever going to come across. And I mean, I love it. I love it when things are on the nose like that, If you were just looking at the original art and you didn't know what the book was called, you might honestly guess Cosmic Checkmate.
You might. I'm curious. I mean, with Ace, because I don't know a lot about that era of publishing other than, the artists and the artwork. But I mean, do editors from like that period get any kind of credit for any of the concepts and designs, that brought this artwork to, to the masses? I mean, or is it really more the artists who get all the credit for it.
I think the artists get most of the credit in terms of what people are aware of today, but people are really, people who are collectors, they are familiar with like who the big art directors were working at the various publishing houses at the time. Normally the editor of the book itself might not have, they might have a little bit more say in it than the author, but by and large, there'd be an art director or two who was kind of working on the look and feel of the paperback brand. That's why there's certain, like these books, they're defined by their image. They're also defined by what you saw, with the band up top and the way the spines look, and all of that had to feel coherent even when they were using, a stable of different artists.
Well, cosmic checkmate it is. Now, I know this next piece is doing pretty well at auction. If the screen would refresh here for me. There it goes. So this is Frank Frazetta. It's it's a gorgeous piece. I mean, even in the preview, it was going to do really, really well, just because these pieces are pretty hard to come by these days. So yeah, I thought this one was lovely, and I'll be curious to see where it ends up.
Me too. I mean, I think there's not much to say other than, exactly what you said. It's, it's beautiful. I, was thrilled when we got the chance to offer it. We had offered it, long before I worked at Heritage, I think maybe 15 years ago, maybe more even. I don't remember the exact date, but that a collector was ready to let it change hands and be somebody else's pride and joy is always an exciting moment.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a couple Frazetta books that are coming out in the next few months that we're going to be previewing on the channel for two different publishers, and yeah, it's just fun. I mean, it's always great to see him and his work being recognized. I think even Sarah Frazetta from Frazetta Girls announced some softback book that's coming out from older work that Arnie Fenner played a role in, bringing it all together too. So it's great. I mean, because a lot of us grew up on the Ballantine books with Frazetta works, and that was our introduction to getting to see his stuff early on. But it's cool to see his work getting reprinted and brought out in better publications.
And I have to say, we were talking about the New York preview. One of the most fun parts about the New York preview is, this is a very diverse sale. We have, we have Frazettas, we have Rockwells, and somehow the way the room worked out, we got to put the Frazetta directly between two Rockwells. And I was like, you wouldn't expect it, but once you see it, it feels, natural as the day is long.
I should have had you shoot some video while it was on display. I would have loved to have seen that.
I think there might be some. I think there might have been. I don't know if people follow, my Sarahjane at Heritage Instagram, but I think there might have been some stuff in my stories about it.
All right. Well, I will go back and see if I can see that, because yeah, that would have been cool. I would have loved to have previewed that for everybody. Yeah. All right. So one of the Vallejos in here. This is a Star Trek related painting. Here, I'll zoom in a little bit on that.
I know I didn't want, I mean, I could have just been like, here is every single Vallejo we have. And, I just ended up sort of picking sort of at random, because I think you should check out all of the Vallejos we have. But I think this one, I always like when you get to see somebody do, I mean, obviously he's very known for, doing a substantial amount of Star Trek work, but also, when you think of him, you think of the girls, you think of these, this different take of fantasy. And so
the Olympian kind of images from his calendars.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So we have a very, like one of those that I like a lot. We have a one that was used as one of the covers of Circe. But we also have this, and we have a sci-fi, Vallejo, and yeah, it's got a nice little selection.
Yeah, the sci-fi Vallejo surprised me. It's just not something I have ever really seen before from him, because I'm so used to his figurative work.
Yeah.
And here's another Vallejo, and again, a great choice. How can you not show a couple in a row, right? Because this is what you want. You're kind of used to seeing, and you expect to see, and then here it is. It's exactly what you would want out of a Boris Vallejo.
Yeah.
And this was 1991. Gorgeous.
Yeah. I know that one really blows me away, especially the way it just feels like so timeless and so exactly of its moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he paints a really good wolf.
Yeah.
I've always felt that and he does a good job on a skull too. So this is gorgeous.
And not bad on a horse either.
No,
and these are not easy things to paint. I like and neither is a strong, powerful woman. So across the board, he's setting them up and knocking them down.
And you have a Jeffrey Catherine Jones piece too. Now this was it looks like what was it for, a back cover? Okay, a back cover to
Now and Then Time.
Now and Then, right? Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So yeah, and I just think that one. I always like when we have the chance to offer delicate things, and I just enjoy getting to look at them, and I think that's it's a really, I don't have any word for it other than it's a really lovely offering. That's kind of one of the things that's we do fortunately get the chance to regularly offer Jones work, and they're always diverse. We get a bunch of different sorts, and this one, to me, I'm just like, this is one that I'm really just enjoying, like, getting to spend time with, and just be a little bit reflective with, because it feels very just gentle.
It does. Their style is always very unmistakable. I feel like in the way they drew the face, right? There's something about the eyes and the lips and just the general composition and pose on the figures that you almost have to think Jones before you're 100% sure. You almost just you can see it. I have like really small illustration, maybe 5 inches by 5 inches, just of a face, and it has all these same characteristics. It's just lovely, and and just kind of dream quality, like just the way you would want out of a Jeff Jones black and white piece.
Yeah.
Just like Kazra said, unmistakably Jones.
Yeah, exactly. Which I like it both. I like that we've been getting to talk about things that you're like, oh yes, that's exactly what I'm used to seeing that artist do, and oh, that feels like a little bit of a departure. That's the fun thing about getting to work with so much art, that you get to enjoy both halves of that relationship.
And it's nicely framed too. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. That one ready to put on the wall. Wow, that's gorgeous like that. Okay, and then Brom. I don't think I might, in 4 years, I think we might have mentioned Brom's name once on the channel. So it doesn't come up often because there's not a lot of his art in certainly on CAF. Clearly super well known. He had that amazing book that Flesk put out like 10 years ago. As a retrospective on his work. I think he's amazing. I got to meet him at IX like 8 years ago when they had him there as a guest, and he was the artist that they commissioned. I just love his work. And
I'm with you. I love his work, and I'm not surprised I don't see it more, because that usually means that people when they get it, they love it as much as we do. But at the same time, with how well known and how desirable his work has been for a time, I am surprised that you don't see more people talking about having it in their collections. But this one, I was thrilled. I was thrilled when I saw the first photo that hit my inbox talking about it. I was thrilled the first time I saw it in person, and I'm thrilled that everybody else is seeming to respond to it like I am. Both in terms of bidding, but also again in terms of like when I've been able to show it to people in person. People who aren't as familiar with the artist, really just they know they're seeing something really original.
Exactly, and I hadn't read the title before, but it's trading card art from D&D on top of everything else. So that's very, very cool. From
and
90.
twice used. Yeah. It was first just in like the standalone trading card series, and then it was used in one of the games. So
Okay.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's nice. 18 by 15.
Yeah.
All right, and then Ken Kelly. A sale like this wouldn't be complete without something by Ken. Of course, I thought this, again, I thought it was a fantastic image, and I love the lighting on it. I love the use of the soft yellow and oranges and the drapes behind her. I just think that as a composition and the handling of the characters, on here, it's just really, really nice. I mean, I typically, when I think of Ken's work, I feel it's like a little more visceral, kind of thing. And here he's trying to, he's got a female figure. He's trying to paint, he's painting her delicately, and it's just a fun piece that's different than what I think about typically when I think of Ken's work and the things he got to paint in his career.
I know, yeah, and especially like that lighting feels a little like it feels very like he's playing with something on purpose, and like I that feels very, I don't know, that feels very like a delight. Like I keep using that word tonight. I'm sorry. It's too much of using the same word. And then this is unusual. We don't often get to offer the study with the piece, but I really love that because I think we were just talking about the lighting, and one thing you'll see is that in the study, it's much less of a focal point of how he was considering, putting the work together. And then I really think the fact that it kind of felt like a little bit of a circle around her, a diamond, really brings it all together. And when you look at the study, it's just kind of like diffusing out.
Yeah, that's nice. I've seen a few Ken Kelly, study pieces in the last few years, and yeah, they're always interesting. But I've not been able to really compare them back and forth with the piece like this here. This is great. It's funny, I didn't even notice that whatever that is in her hand on this painting, and then I see it on the rough and the prelim, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I love this piece. This is really, really nice. And obviously, Ken passed 2.5 years ago or so, and so we don't get any more work by Mr. Kelly, but yeah, very prolific.
Yes, and I really love the like, it's almost like viscous, like the thickness that you can see on the red of the blood on the the guy's sword towards the bottom. Like I just like this is going back to just when people are just working at one step harder than anybody might notice when they're looking at the final published thing, but they know that like subtly it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, now this is a great piece. Somebody's going to be very happy when they win that one.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this artist's name.
I'm going to say Bánfalvy Ákos.
Ákos.
That's going to be as close as I'm going to get. But yes, it's not an artist I'm familiar with. It's not an artist I'm familiar with, which is also very fun. And, it's not an artist who reads familiar in some ways, Like it doesn't, it's a 1986, science fiction fantasy book cover, but it doesn't feel like any of the things that we've been looking at. This is somebody who's coming from a different tradition, coming from like a different background. And so, there's obviously the same references in some ways of, spheres and floating, buildings and moon rocks and sky, but it just feels like that's a very different way of painting a figure than anybody who was working in America at the time was doing.
Right, because this is from '86, so it's a Dune translated book probably, but yeah, no, it's very interesting.
Yeah, that's the first time Dune was translated into Hungarian. That's the book which again I just think is so fascinating. Like I learned a little bit about history. I didn't know what year Dune was translated into Hungarian until I was working on the sale.
Exactly. And
you all
need
have
new
to.
covers. I mean, it makes sense too, right? I mean, because it's going to put a little bit of a cultural spin on the artwork when they see a style that they're maybe a little bit more familiar with, and for whatever reason, just maybe makes it easier to pick up the book. But yeah, that's interesting. Ah, here we go. Now we were talking. What was the Hildebrandt next to when you were doing your preview?
It was next to a Lion Decker.
Lion
Yeah.
Decker. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's again, I now that I'm looking at this piece, I can picture the lion decker right beside it. And yeah, I can't, yeah, how again, I wish I could have seen it in person because
Yeah.
you'll never see that happen again.
Next time I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna just FaceTime you. Yeah.
But this is a very, yeah, this is an incredible piece by the Hildebrandt. But the one thing I wanted to point out was that, I interviewed the gentleman who probably consigned this with you because we did an interview back in like December, early December, I think. And so this piece was with them at that time, and it was just gorgeous because
Yeah.
we got to do a little walk around and looking at other pieces, and I just think it's amazing. It's large. I mean,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. If you want a classic Lord of the Rings image, I mean, this is a great one to have.
And I mean, and also, this piece was kind of the centerpiece of the Hildebrandt Memorial exhibit that you all were nice enough
That's
to put
true.
on LAX. And I
That
felt
is
like
very true.
it was really meaningful to people to see it there. And I think that, I just feel like this piece has so much of their legacy in it. Like they chose it to be the cover of the final calendar they ever put out too. And I feel like there's something so symbolic about, this is where the adventure starts, obviously. This is where the younger generation literally takes on the mantle of adventure. And it just feels like a gift the Hildebrandts gave. Like all of the work that the Hildebrands did on the Lord of the Rings is a gift they gave to all of us. And I don't know, there's something about this that puts me in mind of thinking about how meaningful it's all been to like our community and to people's
Oh
understanding
yeah.
of the book.
I grew up on the calendars, for instance. I mean, I own some really nice giclée prints from some of their pieces that I have hanging up because again, I'll never afford the originals, but the images are just so striking, and the Hilda brothers just had the style that defined the Lord of the Rings for me. I mean, I think I'd read the Lord of the Rings before I saw a calendar, but the calendars just brought it all to life because I'd read it at a point before I'd seen the animated cartoon or anything like that. And yeah, I mean, so for me, they were the defining kind of imagery for all three books. And yeah, I think this is gorgeous. And you're right. I mean, it's huge and it's breathtaking. And if it was in your in your study or you would admire that piece every single day. I mean, it's something that needs to be seen.
Put two big bookcases with your, with all of your Tolkien on either side, and it would be cool. That's also really nicely framed. If we're going to things that are nicely framed, that's that's just ready to hang up on your wall.
Wow. Yeah, that's gorgeous. Well, that'll I'll be curious to see where that one goes. I mean, because these don't come up too often from that. But here's another a piece by both Greg and Tim as well. I wasn't as familiar with what this was from. I mean,
no. So this is from they were getting so popular during the Lord of the Rings calendars that they actually kind of spun off their own calendars that were based on this sort of like the Lost World of Atlantis, and they were just doing scenes that were kind of like based on kind of the legend of Atlantis in a lot of ways. And this is from that. And I like this because it is much smaller, just first of all, I'm going to say, which is, like it's great to have something big, but it's easier to have something small. Like, and it's, it's got all of these things that made the Hildebrandt brothers, And one of those things is an obsession with Maxfield Parrish, who was the most important kind of early 20th century illustrator in a lot of ways. And he was known for this thing called Parrish blue. And that that tone of blue is everywhere in here. You can also see notes of him in the trees and just a lot of the handling of the paint. So I love this because it's so original. It's so, it's so like of its time. It's so, modern and futuristic, but also so inspired by, classic illustration. They're telling you who they are and where they came from with this one.
Yeah, no, you're right. I always forget the Parrish references in some of their work, but you're right. I mean, the coloring on this thing is unmistakable, and you're right. Just the way it's framed,
Yeah,
with the trees. It's But again, beautiful piece. And are there a couple?
yeah, there are two. There's one more. I think I only pulled the
Yeah,
one. Another is a daytime scene, kind of.
That's right.
Yeah.
So not the only one. That's the thing. If people who are seeing what we're previewing tonight, if you're curious, you should check and see a lot of the other pieces, because we're only going to look at a few Sendak pieces too. But I don't even know what the count is. 8. Okay.
28. There's 28.
28. I mean, it's crazy.
There's 28 pieces from the museum exhibited Sendak collection. I think they might not all they're not all original art, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one's made out to me. If I had some money, I'd be angling on that one.
Right? Let's see if we can all get all your fans to chip in and buy you a birthday present. When's your birthday?
It was a little over a week ago.
Yeah, come on, belated birthday present for Bill.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not too often when you see something with your name on it like that. But we will look at that piece in a little bit. But this one's cool. I mean, it's by Rowena, color out of space. I mean, I've seen this cover, on paperbacks before. I remember my uncles had this book on their bookshelf, with this cover. So I remember seeing it, and I always was like, what on earth, is this Lovecraft stuff? But when you see a painting like this, as crazy as it is, it's you just don't know what to think, but you want to know more about it.
Exactly.
I mean, look at this thing. I mean, the more I'm looking at it, I didn't even notice like the skeletal hand at the bottom initially when I looked at it earlier. But yeah, there's just so much strangeness in this piece.
And I mean, so we have actually a special section devoted to Rowena in this sale that comes from her partner, that is like it's all stuff that she kept through the course of her life. And I think that looking at this one, people should look at them all. This is another place where people should just look at them all. We didn't have a chance to share them all, but this I love in particular because Rowena, her thing was always, she painted so flat. She did not want you to be able to see a single brushstroke in her work. That was, something that was very important to her style. And so I have spent so much time just, putting my nose all the way up to this, examining it in incredible detail, trying to figure out how she did that, how she got that much kind of like shine in the work and that much like flatness in the technique. And it's really just a remarkable, remarkable piece in person. And as are a lot of them, but this one was too fun not to be the one I foregrounded.
Right. No, I would have picked this one too. It's just so bizarre and cool, and I love it. And Rowena's work, I think she was a very, very distinctive painter in like her style, like you say. I think that because she was in an early volume of Infected by Art when we first got started, and so I got to email a few times with her. But yeah, I've always appreciated her work, and she probably really never got the notoriety that she did, female in the field. But I feel like she was on par with any of the guys that were doing work during that time and in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, he did put another one in. Yeah.
Here, let's zoom in on that one. There we go. I mean, look, that's just fun. Man, I love that. Another paperback cover from this one's from 78.
Yeah. And then I don't know. I don't think I know much about this book, but yeah. I mean, she did so much. We have one from an Anne McCaffrey. We have one from a Philip K. Dick book. We have ones from like books I've never heard of, and then the style gets really different. We have ones where it's more children, like for young readers, and it feels very contemporary, and things where it feels, almost it's a romance novel that she's working on. So you can really get a sense of the kind of scope of her talent in this sale.
Oh, very nice. And I definitely did not look at all the pieces from her in this.
Yeah. Well, there's still time.
There is time till Friday.
And yes, till Friday, not till Saturday, till Friday.
No, it is still Friday, everybody.
Yes. And so now, now is when, we have one of the really special things about this sale is we have a special section devoted to Maurice Sendak, and not just devoted to Maurice Sendak, but devoted to these pieces that were part of a museum tour that was called 50 Years, 50 Works, 50 Reasons. And it was all about, celebrating Maurice Sendak's career. So we have 28 works that were museum toured and exhibited as part of this Maurice Sendak retrospective. And we are bringing them all to auction in this sale. And they run the gamut from something like this, this is the original poster art for something that was called the Imagination Celebration poster. And it started out being an actual event at the Kennedy Center that was, a time-bound event with, different performers kind of trying to get kids excited about, going to a place and watching kind of like singers and dancers and all that stuff, to becoming just this kind of concept that was in libraries across the country. One of my colleagues told me that she had this poster in her bedroom because she won it for, reading a bunch of books over her summer vacation. It was that sort of thing that was that much a part of kids' lives. So we've got the Imagination Celebration. We've got a couple more pieces that I think I pulled, and then a bunch of things that really just show you a lot about Maurice Sendak, both related to the wild things and beyond it.
Well, I think that's a fantastic piece, and it's wonderful. I mean, that's what I think, illustration was a vehicle for a lot of people to kind of get them into cultural centers, libraries, you name it. And I can't think of a better illustrator, than Maurice, to be kind of a conduit to move children around. I mean, it's one of well-read books for me and my brother when we were young. And and you look at stuff like that, you can just see why people would appreciate it, and then they would do giveaways, and I mean, that makes so much sense. And then here we go, there it is. It's even got my hair, look at that. Self-portrait, we can say, as a chicken too. Gosh, there's a lot of
my gosh, I didn't even know. I wasn't even trying.
The more I'm looking at, there you go. So there it is. Well, we'll see. I'll think about it. But look at that. I mean, it's back to, I mean, it's just so well drawn. I mean, it's exactly what you would want if you were going to get a piece of art from this world. I love it. My goodness. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
It's adorable, and it couldn't be, this is going back to, this could not be by anybody else. Nobody else could think of this.
No, not at all. Gosh, that's amazing. Oh boy, you said 38 pieces from
28.
28. All right. I'm expanding on everything and contracting on others, but oh man. Anyway, I think that's wonderful.
Wow. I do too. And I think the next one, if I remember correctly, is equally weird. So, Maurice Sendak I believe the legend is like he was born on the day the first, maybe like Steamboat Willie came out, or there's some relationship between his birthday and, the formative, like one of the formative generative things that created Mickey Mouse, and unfortunately, I do not remember exactly what it was. But so, he collected Mickey Mouse stuff throughout his life, and he painted that on the drum, as just part of his kind of celebration of all things Mickey Mouse. So I really love this, because if Maurice Sendak is a bridge for all of us back to childhood, this is a bridge back to Maurice Sendak's childhood. And, it's not traditional illustration art. It's definitely not traditional, like in any sense of the word, but it's like,
I mean, something like that belongs in a museum as an artifact about the creator and their creation and the things that inspired them. I mean, that's I can't imagine who, the person who gets it, how they're going to display it and where they're going to
Yeah.
display it, because it's just so, it's like Jack Kirby's desk or something, right? That belongs in a place of distinction that that we all can appreciate, and this is just so cool and interesting, and
Yeah.
cross collectibles as number one Marvel fan.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it too. But yeah, that's awesome.
I'm with you. I think it more like transcends collectibles and just like it's just there's something sort of magical about thinking about it.
Agreed. Now this next piece is fun. Charles Addams always has something interesting going on in it. I'll zoom in on here, but yeah, I mean that's a Charles Addams face if there ever was one. But it's but you get golf in here too, so you're actually this is a dual piece here. You get Charles Addams and his his humor and everything, and you get the sports guys, the golfers as well, that would love to have a golf related Charles Addams piece on their wall.
I mean, and maybe there's someone who really loves the legend of the Lady of the Lake, and is kind of like Excalibur and Arthurian stuff, because there's it's obviously a play on that. So I could see this fitting in a lot of people's collections. I mean, it's a New Yorker cover. It's a just great example of Addams's humor. Honestly, my favorite thing about it is when you look at it closely, like the way he's gripping the club. That ball's going to end up back in that lake.
The club will not be in their hands after they.
Yeah, the club's going to be in the lake. And that's not a mistake. That's part of the joke. That's how subtle he was, and trying to make just everything play into the absurdity of the worlds he was creating.
We always think of the the skier going around the tracks going around the tree. I mean, that kind of stuff, right? Exactly. No, this is great, and it's a color piece too. Which in most cases or many cases, I don't think of Charles's work in color. I always really think of the ink wash pieces more than anything. So this is fun to see too.
Absolutely, yeah. And there you go. There's an ink wash piece for you.
That's exactly. My gosh, that's great.
Yeah,
this is a New Yorker magazine piece as well.
Yes, yeah. That was a cover. This is an interior, but yeah, I think there's just the joke in this one is Miss Egan, bring me everything we have on cats. That's and it's just so funny, I can't tell you why it's so funny, but it is.
Yeah,
and they're so cute. They're so cute, and yet it's got like the long bony fingers. I mean, those almost look like Edward Gorey fingers, but there's
true. I love it. And the way it's framed too, just in that rough circle, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's just a fun way to present the image too, and it's I love it. The lighting's nice. It's great. And so in this one, if you like pets, if you like mice, and you like Charles Addams, here's your piece.
Or if you like, things about cats. I know tons of people who collect art about cats, and normally you're going to see the cat, but here it's still art about cats.
True. Oh, all right. Now, it's a Coca-Cola image, number one. That's got we're getting, it's illustration. At the end of the day, there should be a lot of crossover, right? We had Dungeons and Dragons with Brom earlier, right? And now we have a Coca-Cola image. I mean, that's what illustration kind of falls right into. It's promoting products or books or anything. But this is just such a lovely image by itself. I mean, I'm not familiar. Haddon Hubbard.
Oh my God. Okay, let me make you familiar with Haddon Sundblom.
Help me.
Okay, Haddon Sundblom. He is, first of all, the creator of the Coca-Cola Santa Claus. So he did all things Coca-Cola. But he was the most prominent Coca-Cola advertising artist for a number of years. And if you think about Coca-Cola advertising trays, those collectible trays that had the pretty girls in them, he did a lot of those. Gil Elvgren also did some of them, and Haddon Sundblom really was Gil Elvgren's informal teacher, and he really created something that was known as the mayonnaise technique, which is not the, but what it was is this form of wet on wet oil painting, where you would just put layer upon layer of oil paint on, and it gave the skin tone in the figures you were painting this incredible glow. And that's really what Sundblom and then Elvgren became, that's why their work stood out in the pack in a lot of ways. And so that's who Haddon Sundblom is. And, that's kind of why people love his work. And, he was really considered to be just the father of this sort of all-American pinup.
Well, I've written the name down, and I'm going to do my research afterwards. So
well, people call them
again, Sarahjane. Yeah, no, Sundblom. Awesome.
Yeah, but so yeah.
I mean, obviously, I've seen the work before. Yeah. I mean, now that I know that, it's like, of course, I've seen the work all the time, but never had a name to put to it. So, wow. New Coke or Coca-Cola Classic? Asked Colin. It's probably Classic.
Yes, back in 1954, I think that was all they had. Didn't even have tab yet.
No.
And then here, yeah, I was going for the advert. I was going for let's talk about the advertising art for a little. And this is, the Breck Girl campaign is, again, one of the most important advertising campaigns of, the 20th century. Everybody's heard of the Breck Girl. And one of the things that made it such an important campaign was that it, featured these soon-to-be stars like a young Brooke Shields. And yeah, this just gorgeous pastel portrait of Brooke Shields, as a child with this doll, and just showing off, her perfect all-American hair. That was really, one of the formative moments in her early career. I can't believe it just kind of fell into my lap, and now I get to share it with you all.
Wow. You've gotten to handle a lot of cool art with this auction in particular. That's nice. It's not Megan. But yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's at first I didn't think it was pastel, and then after I read the description earlier, I was like, wow, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this artist, Ralph Williams, he was the Breck artist for decades, very synonymous with it, and he kind of used a specific sort of paper that he was laying, that he was laying the pastel on, that kind of makes it even dreamier than most pastel. And I think that's kind of why you didn't recognize it at first, because he was able to, do something with the medium that almost nobody else could.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Mystery Zoo Lucky says just a few years later, she was a star in the Blue Lagoon. Yes, that is true. Yeah. I think we're going to be moving into some Elvgren pieces now.
Yes, we are. Oh, they're talked amazing. About him. I evoked him. Yeah.
Yep. I know. This was so much fun too. I mean, come on, playing a handsaw. But
yeah, the dog harmonizing.
Exactly. So much fun there, and and again, it's that crossover appeal. That's dog lovers, beautiful women, music. It has a little bit of everything in it, and but yeah, I mean, Elvgren is just so amazing. As a painter, I mean, just like you said, it's the technique, right? It's unmistakable when you see it, and it defined a generation of other painters who came in alongside and after Gil.
I mean, and still today, you still I walk around all the time and see riffs on Elvgren among contemporary artists, among ad campaigns working today. God, you go into any sort of local brewery in any sort of Midwestern town, you're going to see them having turned some sort of Elvgren girl into a beer label.
Right. Well, Greg Hildebrandt painted a lot of kind of characteristic women in that way. Later, I mean, and it was he did a lot of pinup work.
God, yeah, incredible, and yeah, we have some of those in the sale too, by the way. So
cool. I always and I appreciated that. I mean, it's an area that isn't. I don't know. Maybe there was a certain period of time in the 21st century or late 20th century where that was more of lowbrow kind of approach, and I thought that the work that Hildebrandt did really was kind of bringing that elevated style back to pinup work that, it didn't need to be smutty to be beautiful, and that sort of thing. And so, and that's the way I look at this period of, painting women like this for whatever advertising campaigns or whatnot. So.
I mean, and I think that actually it's an aside, but Hildebrandt started painting pinup because he was actually talking to, Louis Mizell, who's one of the people who really brought classic pinup back into the modern conversation with the books that he was putting out in the 90s and with kind of promoting the work. And he basically said to Greg, like, if you start doing works like this, I'm going to promote you. I'm going to make sure that they get the showing they deserve. And they really worked together to create that American Beauty series that, Greg did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And this is like another adorable Elvgren. I think I wanted to show them both because I'm a sucker for a cute dog.
The dog is very interested in what's going on here, clearly. And you get a car in it too. I mean, and again, I think about Greg again. I mean, a lot of those images he used, there was always a car in it. There was always a beautiful woman, and here you have
get more American.
Right, exactly. But yeah,
who's ever heard of this open air bowling that she's doing?
I was wondering about that. You don't usually have giant picture windows in a bowling alley at all, unless it's like in the bar section of the bowling alley. But yeah.
But you should. This reminds you why you should.
Yes, exactly. It could be a spectator sport for those people outside if you want. But no, I thought the color work on this thing is great. I love her red shoes, the red car, there's red on the bowling balls. I mean, it's the palette on this thing is just so fun and and sort of garish, but it all just kind of works, ties it all together. It's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, and the hints, the yellow in her socks to her shirt, the green in her skirt to the trees. Yeah, it really is. Like, it does feel like it's more is more at first, but then you go, no, there's a logic.
Mm-hmm. And she's got such style. She didn't cross the line either.
Yeah.
No foul. Oh man, yeah, that is nice. Now it says attributed to Elvgren. I mean, how do you handle something like that when you get a piece that's not signed, but you feel fairly confident on stuff like that?
Well, so things like this, there's a lot of information about Elvgren's career that, if he was doing side work that wasn't for Brown and Bigelow, he might not be signing it. You look at her face and it's very clearly an Elvgren face. You look at that dog, it's very clearly an Elvgren dog. And then, you also know that sometimes he was working, he was working with somebody else who might have been helping him with that background a little, or, something like that. So you just try to be really honest that I look at that face and I look at that dog and I don't know who else could have done that, and I look at those choices overall and I go, I don't know who else could have been behind that. And I look at Ditzler calendars for this period, which I believe this was a Ditzler calendar. And I know the relationship he had with that campaign. And, I put it all together, but I want to also be honest when I say, I've never seen any paperwork that says he did this. I've never seen any, it's there, as opposed to everything else that I do know about Elvgren that has been, fully, we've been able to prove, we've been able to prove with all of the backing paperwork, with all of the contemporaneous things where it gets attributed to him. This is, you look at it and you can decide the things you can decide by looking at it. But, I've yet to see anybody, show me the contract that he signed with the company to paint it.
Right. And there's a few other Elvgrens in there, or are these the only two?
there's a few other Elvgrens in the sale.
Okay, I thought there were.
Yeah. But I wanted to make sure we got to talk about this because this is one of my favorite things, because this is, again, I love it when I get to share a little history with y'all. George Petty, one of the most amazing artists, before Vargas worked at Esquire, he was the pinup artist for Esquire. George Petty, there were things he was great at. And one was getting really, really favorable contract terms for himself that included getting back his original art. And two was being incredibly lazy and figuring out how to then use that art for another campaign. So this was originally an Esquire pinup that said, I'm not posing for that account any longer. And in that, she was nude. But then he resold it to Janssen when Janssen moved from making swimwear to also making lingerie, and just like painted the lingerie on a separate piece of translucent paper and taped it on. And that is how Petty liked to work. And I gotta say, I really admire that, like, work smarter, not harder hustle.
Right, right, of course. I mean, if you can get away with it, why not?
Yeah.
There is a lot, Kazar mentions the geometry. When I was looking at this, it was reminding me of like the Bern Hogarth books, the way he would handle drawing,
Mhm.
the musculature. When you look at how a lot of this, it's kind of rendered in planes. It really is. I mean, for like a rib cage is not we're not seeing ribs, we're just seeing a plane, and it works. And yeah, I think this is just it's wonderful, and I love the flat, the way her arm that's holding the phone is just almost a flat color.
Yeah,
There's a lot of really smart things done in here that probably were really, really unique for the time.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I like that backstory too.
Yeah.
Just take some clothing on her, and you got a second sale.
Yeah. But that's also why Vargas got a really terrible contract, because Esquire was resented how, how Petty took advantage of them in some ways, where they felt that, and so they then took advantage of Vargas, and it turns into a very sad story.
Right, and we're gonna look at Vargas next, I think.
And
Yep.
that plays into that sad story, actually, because so Vargas, when he was working for Esquire, he had the opposite deal. He didn't get he didn't get anything. He didn't get any credit. They even bought his name when he stopped working for Esquire. That's why there's a period of time where you see his name signed, like you see there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a period of time where you see it signed with the S and with a very different style, because Esquire technically owned the signature that looked like this.
Wow.
So, yeah. This is one of his most beautiful nudes that he did before his Playboy, era. He got really known for these busty nudes when he was working for Playboy, but he was as masterful as he was because he was a master of figure drawing. And I think you see that here. I love that he and his wife then gave it to somebody as a gift. I love I just love like the incredible, like subtlety and strength of her body. I love her hair. Just every choice he made is really, again, well thought out and really innovative.
So Petty's time predated Vargas's time on Esquire?
Exactly. Petty's time.
So you think that it was sort of they felt Petty got the best of them, and so they just completely turned their philosophy around on how they
I think the Petty partially left because Esquire was pushing him to create more faster, and he didn't enjoy the changing terms. But there was definitely something about Petty was so famous, and the Petty girl became such a phenomenon that was why they were like, if we're gonna invest in another kind of superstar illustrator and turn somebody else into kind of like a household name, we're gonna keep the brand. And they branded the heck out of that. They were selling greeting cards and playing cards and standalone calendars, and just they were marketing Vargas so hard as an Esquire product that they couldn't afford to let him become not one.
Wow.
And then it took about a decade till Hef hired him at Playboy for him to really come back from that after he stopped working with Esquire.
Mm-hmm. I can't say I've read too many bios from illustrators during that time, but that's kind of tragic, because whenever I think of the word, Vargas girl, you think that effectively it's, inherently because of Vargas, and it's not, more of them marketing his name for their products. And yeah, that's unfortunate. Wow. Okay. Where are we going to from here now?
Oh, we're going to Henry Clive, who's maybe my favorite illustrator. There's really no reason I chose this other than sometimes when people ask me, I say it's Edwin Georgi. Sometimes, I say it's Willie Pagani, and sometimes I say it's Henry Clive. Henry Clive is one of my favorite illustrators of all time. Really known for working with William Randolph Hearst and on the American Weekly, did just boatload of American Weekly covers. but he did even though he was known as a pinup artist, a pretty girl artist, only did a handful of calendars in his life. And this is one of them. And I think it is just absolutely breathtaking.
Yeah, it's a large painting. It's 2 feet by 30 or 30 inches. It's 100 years old.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Just think.
I couldn't tell from her, from her attire, but yeah, when you think about it, it's
I know.
amazing for that era.
Yeah, people would kill for that swimsuit today. God.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there you go. Israel says it's my absolute fave. I can see why. Yeah. Just the way that her robe is blowing. Yeah, it's almost like a flower. It's floral. There's there's a lot here that's very nice, and that seascape with the with the land in the background. It feels before its time. It's like something I would see in the 70s or something a little more I don't know, impressionistic, but still it's gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's another early piece.
Here's another just beautiful, just introducing you to some of the pinup artists outside of the obvious ones. Zoe Moser, she's really famous for being a female pinup artist, first of all. Also, she did the original movie art for The Outlaw. She was just really glamorous. She used herself as a model a lot. And I think we've been talking a lot about, the way people can do faces, the way people can, just do these different elements. And I think the way she can do eyes is really, something that nobody else could. You can't, as soon as you get to know her work, you're going to start recognizing, her eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in this piece. I really like it.
Oh.
And again, pastels that are still around 90 years later, well preserved.
Yeah, she worked thick. That's another thing, like we were talking about, working wet on wet with thick oil. And the people who worked with pastels and were really generous in their use of them, their work has stood the test of time a lot more than the people who were very kind of sketchy and light in how they were applying them.
And this was published. It says it's a perfume ad.
She loved this image so much she painted it twice and published it in 2 different things. Yeah. That's how popular it was.
There we go. I think Marcus was asking, that somebody paints a baseball in somebody's hand earlier, and
there we go.
From 1930. Yeah, look at that.
Wow. Yeah, Enoch Bowles. He was the major illustrator for Film Fun magazine for almost 20 years, maybe, give or take. But yeah, and this is one of those covers. I think it's very timely. We're in baseball season right now, and she's just adorable and having a lot of fun. And I love all the things people were doing with hair back when the flapper bobs were big.
Exactly. Yeah, I like the image a lot. It's fun. Composition's good. Yeah. And what was this used for? This was okay. It was
the cover of Film Fun magazine. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't think we have an image of the cover in the listing, but
no.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up, I guess this is a piece that's getting the most attention, I think, in the auction right now.
Yeah, in retrospect, what I should have done is put the Moser and then the Nagel side by side, because those colors work so well together. And I think you really get a sense of how before her time the Moser was, when you think about kind of how this is almost reminiscent in certain ways, even though, this is also like nothing else except a Nagel. Anytime you see a Nagel, you're not going to mistake it for anything else, except for maybe somebody trying to knock off and rip off a Nagel.
Right. I mean, his work was like mass produced. I mean, you saw it
Yeah.
everywhere back during this time. And I always thought that was kind of cool because, as wanting to be an artist at that point in time, it was just neat seeing somebody's work in, all over the place and not the stuff that I was normally collecting, right? I mean, I was interested in comic books and illustration, and I'd Valentine books for Frazetta and whatnot. But you'd see Nagel artworks appearing. You'd see him on television shows you'd be watching, and you're like, my gosh, this guy has like transcended illustration and gotten into, I can't remember what TV shows that you'd see it, but you'd see it on the wall, and it
Yeah.
was so interesting to see his work so readily accepted by the masses, and treating it as if it was something that worth hanging on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, there's something about like it just works, like there's something compelling about how restrained it is. And yeah, I mean, it both fit in with time very well, partially, everybody all of a sudden they're throwing out their furniture and buying like big white couches and making their houses look like Scarface, and it fits in really well there. But
Right.
also, even if this doesn't match your decor, there's something really kind of like, you look at it and you go, oh, this is nice to look at. This is commanding. This is both interesting and like also, telling me a very clear story that I think made it easy for it to become popular. And it was just cool.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you could look at a Nagels and just be happy, because again, the compositions were always great. So
Yeah.
there was just always something special about his work. Yeah, what is Ezreal says, Nagel was just such an icon, big hair, big earrings, sharp colors. Yep.
Yeah.
Pale flesh, though. I mean, it's like,
Oh,
kabuki kind of a feel, but I mean,
yeah.
again, that's just part of what made it so interesting, I think.
I mean, and it's not on accident. Like he was
Hmm.
inspired by, the Japanese woodblock printing.
Right.
He was like really trying to think about how you do render something that feels true to life, but that also is kind of intentionally flat planes, and yeah, it's never an accident when somebody gets as famous as Patrick Nagel.
No, no, not at all. It's not luck.
Yeah.
All
Or
right.
when
So,
somebody gets as famous as Olivia.
right. Now this is so it says it's an Courtney Love album cover. Okay.
Yeah. So this is the back cover for America's Sweetheart. And this, I think this is just out of this world. I mean, first of all, it's Olivia working at her best. And then it's her playfully like riffing on the whole, no pun intended, history of pinup. Like that guitar is a George Petty, that's his line work.
Hmm.
So it's which is something she would often reference in her work. But I think that seeing it there is, just really, it feels like a sophisticated little touch and something that I do think is a pretty sophisticated work.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, let's see what the size on something like that is. I can't say I've ever seen a Olivia
That's
piece.
big, yeah.
Oh, it is. Wow.
Big one,
30
yeah.
by 40 inches.
And
My
they're
God.
not all big. They run really different sizes, Olivia's.
Okay.
She could do really great. She's working at a super high level right now, but she can do sketches that are small, that are, really precise and gorgeous. And, she can do monumental pieces in a bunch of different medium. She can work with like watercolors. She can work with oil. She can do it all.
All right. So, Sorayama.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you're talking about the classy things, how pinup went from being kind of more out there to kind of coming back around, and
mhm.
we had to go through.
Sorayama definitely leaned into the side that they wanted to lean. I mean, there were people who, I live in Northeast Ohio, and when I owned my miniature golf course, there was this guy who collected Sorayama artwork, and I was shocked. Here I'm in rural Northeast Ohio, and somebody comes in and we're talking about illustration and comic book artwork, and they're telling me that they own Soriamas, and I was just shocked
Yeah.
because it's that, you know, it's how well known their
Yeah.
work is, you know, as a
I mean, and
but
only more so now. I mean, like thinking about their, like all the places their career's taken them, but this is like I just love the boldness of this, like if I was saying I loved the restraint of
the Nagel.
the restraint of the Nagel, I love how not restrained this is. Every idea he had, everything that was on his mind, he put into this painting, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to zoom in on this one, but
No, that's
I
fair.
get it. The thing is, we don't get, Soriyama is not somebody who, again, we've ever really talked about on the
Yeah.
channel because, for varying reasons. There's other artists, we can't too, but they have a really unique place in the
Yeah.
history of
Yeah.
pinup illustration.
And
So
I thought this one wasn't too much, like,
no,
and I figured if
not
it
at all.
was, you would have just, not clicked that tab open. But yeah, I mean, but
Hmm.
I think, yeah, the Soriyama is really important, like I think that's the thing, really, really important, really exciting to people for a bunch of different reasons, not for everybody, but if Soriyama is for you, it's a really rare treat when one comes on the market.
Agreed. I can't say that we've ever, in any of the heritage auctions we've reviewed, ever seen a Soriyama. So I think it's rare and it's cool to see.
Yeah.
Now we go from a Soriyama to a Rockwell. uh, yeah.
There we go. That's weird though. When I said that I put the Frazetta between the two Rockwells and it worked, this might have been a choice that was a little bit even more out there than that.
Mhm.
But yeah, this I love. He did these for a bunch of years. He did these calendars for the Brown and Bigelow Calendar Company, where he kind of depicted the 4 seasons of the year with kind of like a different narrative thread. And this one, it was kind of about love, and so he had like courtship, and then like marriage, and this is kind of the initial spring courtship, and this is one of his preliminary works for that. And I think especially for how, and I think a lot of people who are comic art collectors, they really are a lot more educated in process and in kind of like the way that artwork goes from being an idea to being a final piece. So I think getting to see one of his drawings is just really something that I wouldn't want people to miss out on the opportunity to enjoy.
Mhm. No, I mean, I'm with you. I think it's amazing. And we talk about process all the time, on the channel, because a lot of us, we like to see that. We want the prelims when we buy our art, right?
Yeah.
We love to see what went into that final concept, especially with like cover art. If you can see like the pitch that the artist made to the editor, and you get 4 different versions of it, and you see how that became the final piece. Yeah, it's always fun. And Rockwell is not somebody who you think about getting to see their pencil work too often, but this is great. It's spring.
Yeah.
All the there's love is in the air clearly
It's
in this
true.
piece.
There's
It's
ducks, not
wonderful.
chickens, but you should still like it.
I was looking for the chickens. I was trying to figure out where they were hiding, but you got a pair of turtles down there. So it's something. I got a couple turtles in the backyard.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is cool. And at $10,000 already. I mean, I have no idea what the market is on, prelim Rockwell pieces, but I mean, that speaks pretty strongly about Rockwell's, market,
Yeah.
where this might end up. And I don't check what the size is on a Rockwell prelim, but, very nice. Very, very nice. Then, okay, let me.
Oh my God. This is just, again, sometimes you just gotta, if you're hanging out with me, you gotta hear about my favorites. And I think Orson Lowell is just, really a talent for the ages. And this is just a lot of fun. And he did this whole series of works about, kind of people going to the beach in the summer, and especially how there would be women going to the beach in the summer and all the men weren't getting to go at the same time because they were, office workers. And so like there'd be these, other kind of lecherous men trying to like, hit on women who weren't interested, and just this whole series of, humor, like humor about kind of like the the relationship between men and women, and like what it felt like as these things were changing, you know, in society. And he did just such a little joyful job of, you know, giving everybody a different attitude and just giving them all a little bit of time, and saying so much with, you know, just like such loose line work.
Right. Yeah, I love the line work, you know, on the shoreline here. I just, you know, just these sections of you know, condensed ink, you know, line work, and it just gives a nice pattern to it, and it just pulls it all together, and then it, yeah, what a very unique style. I mean, yeah, very intriguing, and I'm sure fun for the era, right? This is 1918.
Yeah.
So
and
you've
yes,
seen,
when it says the submarine, it's titled the submarine menace again. So you're thinking about it's like, you know, they're also making like, you know, gallows humor jokes about the war. You know?
So you've seen a fair amount of Orson's work, then I
Yeah.
presume. Yeah, I'm not familiar with his work either, but I mean, it doesn't mean I haven't seen it. I just, the notoriety of some of these artists isn't as well known as it should be.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, that there's a lot of things where, you know, their influence is bigger than their name, and he's one of those guys. Whereas I think this guy, you know, J.C. Leyendecker, his influence is bigger than his name, but he's pretty well known. Yeah, and this is to me a really special piece. This was you know, it was for, we're still in the World War I era. This was, you know, a home front poster with the message to, you know, save coal so that it could be used for, you know, it could be used for military purposes to try to conserve. And you see literally everything people love about Leyendecker. You know, the way he could handle fabric like nobody's business, the way he used that like heavy hatch to, you know, like play with light, and you know, the way he could just do male figures, and, you know, kind of like talk about those relationships in his work, and then just be bringing it to kind of a subject that is like, I love it, because normally he's doing, you know, fashion work for advertising, or, you know, things for the cover of magazines. And when you see somebody doing a war poster, you see them, you know, trying to say something bigger than themselves and their own interests. And I think it really succeeds.
Oh yeah, no, the Leyendecker style is just amazing. I mean, looking at this, you can see so many artists, modern artists, that are influenced by his style. You know, that, I mean, I just think it's amazing. All that hatch work in here, that it's so coarse and separated. I mean, it's so unique for its time. But I mean, I'm just looking at, like, you know, just the way he renders this arm here. I mean, there's not a lot done, but it's so rich that amazing that he can get so much out of these heavy lines, and it still reads so well and has so much depth to it, and the lighting is phenomenal. It's just, and the way he's chosen to crop it. I mean, you know, I mean, he's cut off the top of this guy's head here, but it is, as far as a composition, this is like a modern, you know, composition we'd see in photography. I mean, he's done something in 1917 that we wouldn't expect people to view, you know, or see the world in that way. And it just works so well. I mean, when I saw this piece too, I was enamored with it. I mean, it was one of my favorite pieces when you first reached out about doing the preview. I just thought this is the piece. It's so amazing.
I know I've been saying this might be my favorite piece that I've gotten. Maybe work with since I've been at Heritage, maybe just work with. Like it kind of is right in my wheelhouse.
I can see why.
I was a war poster collector before I was anything else, you know.
Really? Yeah. I mean, okay.
I don't collect anymore. I decided to, you know, to stop while I was ahead and just enjoy from afar. But yeah, that was the first thing I ever bought on eBay, was a World War II poster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. See, and here I didn't think you know, that you collected anything. We've talked.
Well, that's the thing. I don't, because I don't.
You don't anymore.
I realized how much trouble it could get me in. I couldn't do both. I couldn't both deal and collect. So.
Right. Well, I love this piece. Yeah, and Kaz even said the same thing. Volume and hard angles are incredible. It is. It's you know, because I see this and I think, you familiar with like Tommy Lee Edwards' work?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see. You know, I've seen a lot of Tommy's work over the last 25 years, and his rough work kind of looks like this. His finished work has a quality like this, and again, that they're influenced by. It's just crazy to see, knowing that you're influenced by an artist who worked 100+ years prior to you, and they still have something relevant to say today to modern creators.
Well, it's so funny. I was at something last week, and I was giving a talk about illustration, and I was talking about Howard Pyle, and because Howard Pyle started the Brandywine School, and somebody was like, she said, I was texting my husband after your talk, and he's a graphic novelist, and he said, I'm in Pyle's lineage, because Pyle taught his teacher who taught his teacher. Like, these names don't feel familiar to the public, but to working artists, these names still feel really resonant and real. Yeah.
So true. Well, this is great. I mean, I'm again would have loved to have seen it next to the Hildebrandt. But I think everybody, when you see this, and you can see the two pieces together, then again, I had said this to Sarahjane when we were in the green room. It's like you'll never see those two pieces or two similar pieces together in a museum setting or a gallery setting, probably in a very long while. I mean, that was just unique, and I'm going to be going to Instagram to see if there's a photograph.
Yeah.
All right, so where do we go? Oh, no, okay, Howard Pyle.
Oh yeah, there we are. And now we're just at Howard Pyle. Yeah, and this is one of those things that you don't actually, I don't get to touch them as much as I wish I did, and so every time I do, I really get excited. And this is just, the wash is so beautiful, and especially like when you look at that one, the one figure with the dark, the dark hair, and who's seating, like, I'm like, that is getting that inkiness with no texture is kind of amazing. And I am so sorry. I think somebody's knocking at the door. Hi, I'm on a live stream.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm the last one here.
Oh, I'll
You gonna do the warehouse too?
I can do the warehouse too. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry. I need to.
All right. I thought maybe they needed to clean the office.
Yeah.
Empty the trash can.
No. I just need to make sure that I what do you call it? Set the alarm. So
there you go. No, but I'm with you on this one. I think it's amazing. I don't know what year it's done, but yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's see. So
I knew what year it was done right before I started to think about, oh God, I have to remember how to set the alarm. 1887. That's probably the earliest piece we're going to be talking about.
140 years old.
Yeah.
That's just, that's a wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cornwell. I mean,
yeah.
What do you need? What more needs to be said? This is gorgeous.
I mean, I think what more needs to be said is not just Cornwell, it's Captain Blood Cornwell.
Look at that. This is just, it's beautiful. My God. Oh gosh, that's amazing. And Cornwell's an artist that does hang in museums, that does get the proper recognition for their work, and because I've seen Cornwell's in at the Cleveland Museum of Art, places that you wouldn't normally think that you'd get to see pieces like this, but no, this is gorgeous.
Yeah. I know. I really love this, and I think this again. If you zoom out so you can see them all, I really think that he gave each one of them, a real individual personality, a real individual expression. Is just really like everything that like you admire about him, and his really workaholic attitude towards his profession, his deep love of illustration and storytelling.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. See, and you get to see that in person.
I do. Yeah.
Very fortunate.
And and now we've got Harvey Dunn, who's like he's another one of those, not everybody knows his name, but he, Dean Cornwell was the dean of illustrators because he was so influential on a lot of generations of illustrators. That's what he was known as. Harvey Dunn, he taught so many artists really like hone their skills under Dunn in one way or another. And this is also really, again, I wanted to show it because it's something different. I want to make sure that I'm bringing a little bit of the breadth of illustration to the table. And this is really this feels a lot more like, expressionistic. This feels like it's got, it's not as related to some of the threads of illustration we've been looking at, but really just a more like symbolist kind of style of trying to tell a story about what it means to be, soldiers in wartime. I really am moved by it.
No, I agree. Just the shapes of the sheets or whatever that are hanging around in the background just kind of add, it adds interest to the piece.
Yeah.
But just the rough way it's been rendered as well. I mean, it's very, very, very interesting and nice, and probably, I mean, their style stands out clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Huh. Oh wow, this is nice.
I know. This is one of the ones that I was just like, sometimes I'm like, I just showed you something that was $60,000 and I know it's $35,000. This one, I'm just like, I want to show you something that's under the money, It's like, somebody should just like, if you think you like this, you're going to like it more in person, like this is beautiful. Charles Bosseron Chambers, he's not so remembered today, but he did the print of the baby Jesus with kind of the nimbus around his head that was in everybody's house for a long time. It was one of the most popular religious prints of all time. He was known as the religious Rockwell. His image was so popular, and yet nobody's heard of him today. And he was such a talent, and this is so classically inspired by, Pyle and Wyeth, and like has, all of that kind of like all of that legacy, all of that moment, all of that talent. And yet it's something that like we actually could afford to have in our houses, maybe.
Right. I had to go and look and see what what that image was, right, from Bosseron. So there we go. You're right. I think we've all seen that image before.
Exactly. Yeah. It was in somebody's grandmother's house, maybe,
right.
Clearly not mine, but maybe somebody, but like.
Yeah, no, exactly. I feel like one of my grandparents did have this image hanging in their home.
Yeah.
Let me get back over to that. But yeah, that is beautiful though. I mean, the colors are wonderful in this piece.
Yeah.
Kesler mentioned that Dunn was George Pratt's one of George Pratt's favorite artists, and I can see that. Pratt's style has that kind of visceral kind of texture to it. Yeah, I mean, I got a piece from him at IX at OEX, and it has kind of that same kind of textural feel in the paints that he did on there. And CJ asks, "Are you familiar with Frank Bowers, a 30s to 50s muralist?"
Yeah. We didn't even talk about the Cornwell mural thing, but that's next time around. We'll talk about that.
All right. So Jurassic Park artwork. This is McGinty.
Yeah, that's McGinty, and McGinty is just like. Just the more you look at McGinty's overall, the more the artist grows on you, and the more you look at any individual one, the more it grows on you. And this is just really fun.
I love the texture on it. It's really, really. There's an attention to detail here that they went over and above to put together on here. But this was a movie poster artwork from 97.
Yeah, so this was the commercial movie poster. So what that means is like, if you went into Spencer Gifts and you flipped through that rack, this is the poster you would buy, and you could hang on your wall. And in fact, I showed it to a colleague, and he said, "I had that hanging on my wall."
Well, it's very nice.
Yeah. And Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Whereas this, nobody's had this hanging on their wall, because this is just another one of my favorites that I wanted to share. Boris Artsibashev is not an artist people are as familiar with, but he did this kind of like surreal work for a long time. He did some Time magazine covers too, which are less so. But this, I just think, again, this is like, I fell in love with it when I saw it. I don't know, it feels like she's a chess piece or something. You know, I don't know what's going on in it. I haven't been able to figure out where it was used. I know it was used because I've seen the markings on the side of the board, but I don't know what it was used for. I just know I look at it and it's amazing.
It is. I mean, at first I thought it was pencil, but it is ink on board. I mean,
Right.
so either, you know, maybe the board has a little bit of texture or something, but it's really cool the way it's done. The hard line, you know, here on one side, and then this textured, you know, shadow shading going on here is just, it's very unique
Yeah.
like that. And there is a story there somewhere.
Yeah, there's definitely a story. Like I said, it's definitely published. There's definitely a story. I just wasn't able to find out. So someday, someday somebody's gonna buy it. They're gonna be able to have the time to research it, and they're gonna tell me, and I'm gonna be so impressed and so
You
bummed.
have to slip a note in the, you know, when it goes out saying, when you figure out what this was used for, please, you know. All right, and this is, let's see now. Okay, it was published.
So yeah, there's just I just wanted to, I just kind of wanted to give a sense of kind of the online only section of the sale, which has more of these paperbacks. This is Victor Kalin. He's an artist people really like from this period, who really great with how he used colors to create emotion. Great with his like lovely women and their bad girl faces. But I really just like the framing of this, by putting that bed frame so front and center, just to me makes the whole thing more interesting. Makes the whole thing just not just another scene where you're just trying to show sexual tension in a paperback book.
Right. I mean, it's and it's so loosely rendered, the bed frame. It's interesting, that you're almost not supposed to focus on it. It's really just a design element to look through. And yeah, so there's no attention to detail. You don't want it. You want to be able to focus on the characters. So yeah, it's nice. And I thought it was kind of neat the way they even printed it, kind of, they tilted it a little bit.
Yeah.
And that all works.
Oh.
Yeah, that's cool. A place of warped desire ruled by a woman of evil. Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, I mean, if it was me, I'd be intrigued. I'd have to pick that one up and learn what on earth that story is about.
Yeah. Yeah, and this again, like, why did I pick this? Just because I like it, like, why did I pick this? Also, probably just because it's, still sitting there at $1. Like, I want people to look at the whole sale where there's still, bargains to be had. And, really, I want to make sure that, I'm representing the full breadth of illustration, which is, it's a very nice way to start collecting art. There's enough of it that was being produced that, like, these really exquisite pieces, they're great to help somebody start a collection.
No, very true. I mean, as illustration moves to not be traditional, I mean, these pieces have a significance that we can't really measure at the end of the day. And this is an era where everything was hand drawn, or done in that way, versus using photography or whatnot. So no, I'm with you, and it makes me want, what other affordable pieces are still in the auction that may not be once it's all said and done, but there's still some entry points for those of us who are maybe getting into the illustration arts. Let's see.
Again, this one, just it's so fun. This is, and this is also like the reasons people collect illustration. This one, it was for a Japanese magazine about the American film, for a Japanese magazine about like trade, the film making trade. And this is depicting the US, as best as I can understand it, about like what you would be if you were trying to make a movie and like indicate what Louisiana is. You'd have Bourbon and Main Street. If you were trying to like show Florida, you'd have a spaceship taken off and some oranges. It's just the America as seen by somebody who only knew America from the movies.
Right. I mean, there's a lobster on Maine. There's a Hershey Kiss on Pennsylvania. There's a salt shaker over Utah. I mean, no, it's very funny, and very fitting, I think, in some ways. The Alamo, you know, oil wells. I mean, yeah, this is a giant ear of corn. I mean, the more the more I'm looking at it, the more
I
it is
know.
rather funny.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, there's some commentary there on American culture. That's for sure.
And it's really well done. You know, I mean, it's very playful and, you know, cartoony, but it's incredibly well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, this is funny. I should throw a bid on this one just to see if I could win it. I think I could hang this one on the wall if I got it. Yeah, very nice. Now, this last piece you had me add in at the last minute.
Oh yeah, because I forgot that I hadn't added it. And first of all, you know, my thing is I think I'm probably determined to every single time we talk have a Vampirella, and that might be my goal. See how long I can keep this streak going. Hopefully forever. But also, Alice Carter, she is, you know, like she's an artist who people are just all of a sudden starting to really pay attention to and talk about. Partially that's because she, there was one of her pieces that she did for Boba Fett Star Wars packaging. It came to auction a few months ago and sold for, I want to say $93,000.
Wow.
You know, and like she really wasn't on her work, you know, was largely in private hands and wasn't on people's radars. And now it's starting to come out. And now that people know about her and realize how great she is, you know, I think like she's, you know, her collectability is one to watch. And at this moment, you know, that's a really, you know, that's a really high water price. And I might be, you know, I might have gotten it wrong a tiny bit, but not by very much. And this is still, you know, like she's going to be there. She's going to have things that are approachable for a minute, but who knows for how long. And this is just beautiful. Trading card art.
Trading card art again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the patterns around her too. I mean, it just makes you don't have to do that, but she's, you know, she's looking at making something a complete work of art and really, you know, making and challenging herself clearly. I mean, when you're thinking of Vampirella, you really want to focus in on the figure. That's not, but she put in a lot of attention to detail in here that makes your eye wander, and not to where you think you normally would wander in a Vampirella.
Exactly. I mean, while still giving you like all of those notes, you know, she's hitting all of those beats too with the you know, the way she's got the you know, the red suit, the way she's like, you know, she is emphasizing the figure in, you know, not exactly the same way, you know, every other artist does, you know, they all have their own ways, but like she's still giving you, you know, a very sexy vampy, but you know, like also very different.
Now, is that the only piece by Alice Carter in the auction?
Yeah, that's the only piece in the sale. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good one.
It is. No, it really is. And I'm going to make a note of her. I wasn't familiar with her work. I hate to say it.
There is some other of her work that's Star Wars related in the Star Wars sale that's coming up as well. So yeah.
And when's the Star Wars?
I think that is May the 4th.
Of course. Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
I see. I knew there was some. You guys have so many auctions going on. That's I feel like
I should have told you. You know, I should have kept.
I was trying to do some research before this because I was asked to do a preview in a few weeks, and I wasn't quite clear on what the preview was for. So I think that's why I got things mixed up on the calendar. But I was looking at the calendar, and it took me forever to get through.
I know.
May. There's so many. There's so many auctions going on at Heritage. I do think it's over 1 million pieces. It's not in the hundreds of thousands. It's in the millions of things that get sold because of all the. But it's wonderful. You know, you guys have you've started a regular animation auction. You know, weekly. There's so many things happening over there that are, you know, touching on areas that, you know, CAF has represented one way or another because of the collectors that use CAF, and it's just cool to see that, you know, these pieces gaining, you know, the recognition that they are, and, you know, Heritage is seeing the opportunity to kind of present those as standalone auctions too, like they have first here with illustration, moving into animation. You know, you could start doing standalone comic strip auctions 3 or 4 years from now too, and at that point, you know, it might warrant it because there are folks who really focus in on that genre of you know, original art collecting. And so yeah, it's just an exciting time.
I agree.
All who are involved in the business.
And then I'm also, but I'm so glad that even as we're growing, and to be able to give people who really are, passionate high level collectors of one specific thing, their chance to talk about it, that like we're also keeping spaces open like this where, we're talking about a bunch of different things and, trying to connect the dots, because, like I want, as I always say, I want to get more knowledgeable about, comic art. I want, comic art collectors to get more knowledgeable about illustration. I want us all to kind of just keep going, like, there are reasons why I love this and my friend, loves that. And maybe, we can never collect everything, but, like maybe we're going to, have a stronger appreciation and excitement and knowledge about it all.
No, we do. I think. I mean, that's OAX celebration of that, right? I mean, that's. I think we've all got the same goals here, and yeah, no, this is
Thank
wonderful.
you so much. Yeah.
No, it's hey, we all see it. Everybody at CAF is, we're really sold on the approach and trying to do more, and it's just wonderful, and and OAX is a good vehicle for all of that. It's cool. Yeah, there you go, Stephen. Yeah, Steve's auction is, yeah, that may be the auction that is one that they wanted me to talk about with some. There's like two people that want to do a preview, and
okay.
Related to that trading card art auction. I got to reach out to them tomorrow. Joe Manarino put me in touch.
Oh yeah. Is it the one collection?
Yes. But I think
the Dead Code collection is amazing. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. That's worth a preview. And if people have stuck around this long, thank you so much for sticking around with us. And it's definitely worth watching that preview if you do it. I'll watch.
Well, awesome. Well, Sarah, Jane, as always, this is fun, and I guess we'll be seeing you in San Diego next.
Yeah,
you are going to be there. Awesome. But when is the next? Is it already on the calendar? The next illustration signature?
Oh, okay. So after this, we don't have another signature auction until the fall, but we do have more showcases. We're going to have a pinup, the kind of like more modern pinup and Playboy Men's Magazine cartoony showcase. That's going to have straight pinup and cartoons. We're going to have another pulp and paperback showcase. We're going to have one dedicated to Western art that's also going to have a lot of pulp in it. And cool. Yeah, I'm trying to do more showcases because I don't want to keep people waiting 6 months to get another auction.
Smart, very smart. Yeah. All right. Well, this auction is on Friday, everyone. And so, be tuned into it. You can obviously go over to Heritage and set up your, tracking on any of the lots that you're curious about to see where they end. I mean, I've been doing that more frequently, just for my own edification, not just on illustration, but on a lot of the comic art stuff. I don't know why I never did that in the past, but it's actually been really helpful. Because if I know I'm not going to be bidding on something, but I'd like to know where that piece is going to end, I've been doing that and going back and referencing it, because Heritage just good job of emailing me, reminding me about stuff that I've set in my tracking list. So I would encourage everybody to kind of do the same, especially if there's pieces in this auction that you found interesting. Follow them, get to know the market a little bit better, so that the next time a showcase or a signature auction rolls around in illustration, you're better prepared to know what it might go for and whether or not it's something you can put in your collection.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, we're going to call it a night. Thank you for hanging out with us, everybody. And Sarahjane, as always, it's a pleasure getting to talk with you. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in Dallas through the weekend, I assume.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Dallas through the end of the auction. So if anybody's watching it live, you might see me out of the corner of your eye. I think they try to just show the auctioneer, but I'm there too. Yep. And then I'm going to be back in New York. So if anybody's coming by the New York office, let me know.
Very good. All right, everybody, have a fantastic evening. We'll see you again soon.
Okay.